Welcome to the Skeptic Zone, the podcast from Australia for science and reason.
Yes, it's the Skeptic Zone podcast, episode number 791 for the 3rd of December 2023. Richard Saunders coming to you this week from Sydney, Australia. I'm just near the Skeptic Zone studios. Now, last week I brought you the sound of the sea lions in San Francisco. This week I'm bringing you the sounds of the rainbow lorikeets in Sydney. My goodness me. There are thousands of them in the trees around the studio. Quite often when I'm recording segments for the Skeptic Zone, I have to get up very early, before all these birds kick off. I'm standing beneath a very tall eucalypt at the moment. The tree is filled with rainbow lorikeets and they're swooping down to the ground occasionally. And you can imagine that sometimes it's simply impossible to record in the studio, but I thought today, well, I'd give you a little flavour of the sounds of Sydney, if you can use that word flavour when you're talking about sounds. I don't know. What's coming up on this week's show? Well, as I speak, the good folks in Melbourne are getting ready for day 2 of the Australian Skeptics National Convention, Skepticon. And last night at the gala dinner, they announced the winners of this year's awards, the Bent Spoon Awards and various merit awards. Who won the Bent Spoon Award for 2023? The least sought-after prize in Australia. Find out at the top of the show. Following that, it's the Australian Skeptics Newsletter with Adrienne Hill in Canada. Then an article I wrote earlier this year about a very bizarre cult, maybe, movement called the Creative Society, who promises everything, including Star Trek replicators. And they also say they can save us from the end of the world, which is sometime within the next couple of decades. Oh dear, that sounds a bit grim. Find out more with my article called The Upside of Doomsday. Then we continue the round table with Fraser Cain, Brian Dunning and myself talking about skeptical issues. This is part 3, and today we're going to talk about what it's like to be wrong. How often are you wrong? I'm wrong quite a bit, I must admit. Well, every now and then at least. Am I wrong in thinking that? I don't know. Then to round off the show, it's Susan Gerbic and Melanie Trecek-King, who are currently in Melbourne. Before they reached Melbourne, they spent a little bit of time discussing the recent New Zealand Skeptics Conference in Dunedin. A little bit of a roundup from them. No trove this week, a little bit unusual. No trove this week. I will put something together for next week. A big shout out to all the people in Melbourne enjoying the Australian Skeptics National Convention, the hard-working organisers, my dear friend and our reporter Michelle Bickersma, who's having a great time meeting and greeting all the wonderful speakers and the wonderful guests. And speaking of speakers and guests, and Susan and Melanie are coming up to Sydney in a few days. I'll be greeting them at the airport. Looking forward to that. So more reports coming up, which reminds me that this week here in Sydney Skeptics in the Pub, Susan and Melanie will be our guest speakers. Sure to be a huge night. I will add a link in this week's show notes to the meetup group, and more details will be coming up later in the show about Skeptics in the Pub in general and how you can get there. This Thursday night at the Occidental Hotel for Melanie Trecek-King and Susan Gerbic. Well, I think that's enough out of me and the lorikeets. Where have they gone? Half of them flew away. Maybe I'm a tempting fate standing under this tree. I don't know. Anyway, it's time for me to head back to the Skeptic Zone studios, grab a nice big cup of coffee and finish doing this show. While I do that, I hope you enjoy the Skeptic Zone, which I'm just about to finish. You know, sometimes I think I should have been a Time Lord when I'm dealing with all these tenses and past and futures and editing shows you'll hear. Australian Skeptics Annual Awards. Walkley winner Coulthart wins 2023 Bent Spoon. Ross Coulthart, who has won 5 Walkley Awards, including the top Gold Walkley, during his career as a journalist, can now add another prize to the list. The Australian Skeptics Bent Spoon Award. The spoon is given annually to the perpetrator of the most preposterous piece of pseudoscientific or paranormal piffle. The spoon has been given every year since 1982. Coulthart was the choice of skeptics groups across Australia. He joins such past winners as former celebrity chef Pete Evans, who actually won twice, the ABC, SBS, former MP Craig Kelly, the Australian Vaccination Network, and a psychic dentist. Tim Mendham, Executive Officer of Australian Skeptics, said, quote, Coulthart won for his recent espousal of UFO conspiracy theories and claims that alien bodies and wrecked spacecraft are being held in secret by various governments across the world. Claims he makes based on hearsay with no evidence, no bodies, no space junk. Coulthart's award-winning career as an investigative journalist is obviously no defence against belief in unsubstantiated claims. In fact, he has several times rejected the need for evidence to support his claims, complaining,
this constant line, this constant nagging line, where's the evidence? And you know what? I don't give a f*** what they say, because what they say is irrelevant.
And that clip comes from tinyurl.com/truecosmo at the 2 minutes 10 seconds mark. Among the claims Coulthart has supported are the Vatican's involvement in shipping alien bodies to the US, a long-running cover-up by governments of alien visitations, and the concealment of a large alien craft in huge buildings, all without any evidence. Quote, Coulthart won't say where these buildings are, except that they're not in the USA, end quote, Mendham said. Quote, which probably makes him part of the cover-up, end quote. He says that there will be a big reveal in 12 to 18 months, which is something UFO supporters have been saying for 70 years. Quote, we're not holding our breath, end quote, Mendham said. Dishonourable mentions for the spoon went to Senator Gerard Rennick, naturopath Barbara O'Neill, and SBS again. Merit Awards. The more positive Skeptic of the Year award went to blogger Paul Gallagher, whose Losing in the Lucky Country blog represents consistent and dedicated research into the machinations of anti-science and pseudo-medicine organizations, especially the anti-vaccination lobby and its consistently poor performance in taking people to court to stop vaccinations. The Barry Williams Award for Skeptical Journalism is awarded for journalistic work that critically analyzes or exposes issues related to pseudoscientific or the paranormal. The winner is judged by a panel of Walkley Award-winning journalists, but not Ross Coulthart. In addition to a commemorative certificate, $2,000 is awarded to the recipient or to a charity or cause of their choice. This year, the award went to the ABC's Media Watch for its exposure of Coulthart's claims. Again, Robert Kennedy Jr.'s conspiracy theories and the anti-COVID garlic endorsed, if only temporary, by the Doherty Institute. The Thornett Award for the promotion of reason acknowledges a member of the public or public figure who has made a significant contribution to educating or informing the public regarding issues of science and reason. Like the Merit Award, it includes a $2,000 prize. This year, the award went to Nathan Eggins, Brisbane-based musician, songwriter, science communicator, not to mention skeptic, who under the band name of Conspiracy of One promotes a critical view of the paranormal and pseudoscientific claims. The awards were announced at the gala dinner of the Australian Skeptics National Convention in Melbourne on December the 2nd.
Sydney Skeptics in the pub. For 20 years, people in Sydney have been meeting, drinking, eating, hearing great talks from local and international guests, and maybe more importantly, bending hundreds and hundreds of spoons. Everyone is welcome to Sydney's only regular skeptical meetup. Sign up to our meetup group so you don't miss any information about upcoming talks or even the trivia nights. Just head to meetup.com/AustSkeptics. That's AUST Skeptics. Sydney Skeptics in the pub, the first Thursday of each month. Come and join us upstairs at the Occidental Hotel, 43 York Street, just near Wynyard train station.
Everyone, this is Adrienne Hill from Skookum Studios in Calgary, Canada. This is newsletter number 187, and you should subscribe to this newsletter and get it delivered to your inbox every other week, complete with links to all the stories. Just visit www.skeptics.com.au. But now, let's see what Tim Mendham has for us this week. Hi all, says Tim. This is also the second last newsletter for 2023. We're looking forward to kicking off those size 23 Bigfoot slippers. Great for muddy bushland settings, and settling back with a copy of The Skeptic magazine to welcome in Saturnalia and the summer solstice. Read on, Tim. Okay, Tim, I'll do just that. And I hope you're having a great time at Skepticon. New Zealand Skeptics Bent Spoon goes to, drumroll, the New Zealand Skeptics. Back in 1995, the New Zealand Skeptics Bent Spoon Award was given to the Ministry of Justice for a report which looked into domestic violence against women, titled Hitting Home. There was opposition from skeptics at the time, with the skeptics' citation stating that the authors had downplayed certain forms of violence. This view was criticized as a misunderstanding of the report and its intentions. Zip to now, and the current New Zealand Skeptics Committee is in unanimous agreement that the 1995 Spoon Award was not justified. Quote, as such, we would like to apologize to the authors of the report. And, as a way to publicly hold ourselves to account, the 2023 Bent Spoon is awarded to ourselves, the New Zealand Skeptics, for our lack of critical thinking when it came to the Hitting Home report, end quote. Details will no doubt be on the New Zealand Skeptics website soon. How to close the vaccination gap. Report from the Grattan Institute says that, quote, Australia needs a new national vaccination agreement between the federal government and the states to set ambitious targets and forge a plan to drive up vaccination, end quote. That does sound ambitious, but some suggest that the plan is naive. One comment was that, quote, The best practice vaccination communication box on page 29 fails to mention methods of tackling anti-vaxxers and their disinformation, except for having experts speak to people. The assumption there is that having trusted people giving information to counter misinformation will be sufficient, end quote. But it won't be. Cancer victims trust in hoaxer. This is a sad first-person account of someone who followed phony cancer survivor Belle Gibson down the rabbit hole. Gibson is the subject of a new documentary called The Search for Instagram's Worst Con Artist, by which they probably mean the, quote, nastiest con artist, end quote. Since the worst con artist would never con anyone. And who's the best con artist? No one knows, because they're the best con artist. But, by the way, I wonder if Gibson has returned the money she made under false pretenses and paid her fine. Psychic channeling deserves more study. This study is so full of red flags. A team of scientists studying people who claim to be able to talk to the dead via psychic channeling did not find definitive support for any of the study subjects' claimed psychic abilities. Nonetheless, they believe their work shows that such claims of mediumship and psychic channeling can be studied scientifically and under controlled conditions. And it was published in the Journal of Scientific Information, which the researchers described as, quote, an open-access, platinum, peer-reviewed journal that is devoted to maverick or frontier science topics, end quote. The authors concluded that, quote, channeling is likely a complex phenomenon that deserves more serious study, as such perceptions are probably influenced by many as yet unknown factors that should reveal much about the limits of brain functioning and human consciousness, end quote. Or it could be a fake. By the time you read this, the December 2023 issue of The Skeptic will be at the printers, and it looks at some famous or infamous UFO and haunting claims, including an in-depth look at the recent "I've not seen dead bodies, but I know they're there" kerfuffle. Plus, a lot more. Digital copies will be in your hands shortly after Skepticon. Hard copies will take a bit longer, especially if they have to come to Canada. Meanwhile, the September 2023 issue of The Skeptic looks at the risks, the critics, and the hoaxes associated with the golden age of parapsychology, the World Health Organization's promotion of alternative medicine, and the rehabilitation of Uri Geller. If you haven't subscribed yet, now is the time to do so. You can sign up for a hard copy or a digital edition, or both. The digital is offered free to those who take up the hard copy version. Contact the editor if you're not sure if your existing subscription needs renewing. Learn more about our magazine and subscribe now. Items of interest. 31 convincing paranormal photos. A curious collection of photos and videos starts off debunking, then moves into believing, or at least no comment, and then back to debunking, and finally back to believing. A bit each way. There are some nice photos, though. Crying Virgin Mary statue stuns churchgoers. You would cry too if you were from a place ranked the most violent city in the world in 2022. Of course, there's always some nasty skeptics casting doubts on the Virgin of Dolores bona fide. The UK's new 24-hour paranormal, UFO, and music channel. Nub TV launches a new 24/7 channel, quote, mixing UFOs, the paranormal, and the best new music, end quote. It's available on www.aozat.com. You'll need to scroll down through the channel options to find Nub TV. It looks into, quote, UFOs, ghosts, quantum physics, Bigfoot, Mexican alien mummies, and much more. They have exclusive interviews with the paranormal and UFO experts including Uri Geller, Jeremy Corbell, Nick Pope, Yvette Fielding, and Evelyn Hollow, end quote. But don't hold your breath waiting for any skeptics. In addition, the streaming was a bit laggy when we looked. Don't harsh my ghost hunting watch vibes. This is an article on someone's habit of watching ghost hunting TV shows. This is a so-so piece, but we were just intrigued by the headline as we had no idea what it meant. Glad I'm not the only one that couldn't figure that out. Oh dear. Well, that's the newsletter. And I thought it was time to revisit all the Canadian phrases and words I have mentioned to date, so that you won't forget them when you come for a visit. I finally made my way into the Skookum Parkade, feeling kind of squamish after drinking too much screech the night before and from the kerfuffle of finding a parking spot on Black Friday. And Jesus Murphy, it was a gong show. But once inside, I ordered a double-double, grabbed some ketchup chips, and was finally relaxed and seated when a stranger said to me that my Skeptic Zone bunny hug was fair need, eh? I hope you like my sentence. Until next time, this is Adrienne Hill.
It feels like every family has one.
You can summon aliens with your mind. The reason why we can't see them is because we're impure and they're pure.
They might be your parents, your siblings, your cousins, and your friends.
Look, she believes that lizard people are walking on the face of the earth.
They might be your teachers, your police officers, and your lawyers.
It's just like, if you disagree with us, there are going to be severe consequences.
They could even be your elected representatives.
Everyone is out to get you. Everyone with the PhD and MD, everyone in the government is out to get you personally.
We watched them storm the Capitol of the United States.
I mean, if I'd have told you on January 5th that any group of people would try to overthrow the U.S. government, you said, no, of course not.
We saw them occupy Ottawa.
Scientific proof that racism doesn't exist. Their sources are always, trust me, bro.
But what no one is talking about is how they're destroying relationships.
I don't think people realize how damaging it is to families.
They are QAnon, and these are the stories of the people who love them.
Like, if I play into their fantasies, I can make them believe anything I want.
Look for the Q Dropped podcast on your favorite podcast platform, including YouTube, or go to porthosmedia.net/QDropped.
From the Australian Skeptics magazine, The Skeptic, from June 2023, The Upside of Doomsday. Richard Saunders looks at a body that creates fear, but promises salvation, and Star Trek. It was with some concern and distress that I learned earlier this year that our planet is, in fact, doomed. Yes, I know. Again. Indeed, we have a scant 13 years left before supervolcanoes under Yellowstone and the Mariana Trench finish us all. Should we panic? Well, according to a group known as the Creative Society, abbreviated for this report to TCS, we should be desperately concerned. However, you'll be pleased to know that these people do have a solution. Not only do they know how to save the planet, they also offer us a new utopian society. TCS seems to be an offshoot of a movement I was unfamiliar with, called Allatra, I think that's pronounced, Ukrainian Spiritual Movement, founded by a Ukrainian chiropractor, Igor Mikhailovich Danilyov. In a 2022 report, quote, How High-Profile Scientists Felt Tricked by a Group Denying Climate Change, end quote, Marco Silvia and Merlin Thomas, BBC climate disinformation reporters, write that, quote, a dozen scientists, politicians, and campaigners say they have been tricked into participating in online events promoting climate change denial, end quote. And, quote, Alatra is known for promoting pseudoscience and wild conspiracy theories involving aliens and secretive powerful elites that sacrifice children, end quote. Throughout the first part of 2023, TCS flooded social media, notably TikTok, with very professional-looking video clips warning of planet-wide calamity. This was advertising for their major event to take place on the 22nd of April. Quote, Global Crisis. There is a way out. International Online Forum. End quote. We were told that millions of people from all over the world would tune in and at last learn the truth. As this event was scheduled for 1 a.m. Sydney time, I decided not to be part of the watching throng, but instead catch up later via YouTube. Turns out that was a wise decision, as the live presentation went for 12 hours. Trying to condense 12 hours of drivel, vital information into this report is no easy task. However, here are some of the highlights. The world is doomed. TCS's own scientists know for a certainty that in the year 2036, supervolcanoes under Yellowstone and the Mariana Trench will explode and strip our atmosphere off into space, turning us into a Mars-like planet. The Earth's rotation is speeding up. The magnetic poles are changing, thus bringing doom. Recent major earthquakes and measurements from Yellowstone confirm their calculations. Animal life on Earth is dying out due to forces from space. And the scientists who know the truth are being gagged by governments. There were far too many doom and gloom predictions to cover here, but all of them were presented with alarming graphics, charts, videos, and dramatic music by their experts from all over the world. Although most seem to be from Eastern Europe. It all seems a bit bleak, but fear not. There is a way out. TCS's plan is to gain political power in elections all over the planet in time to save us all. When enough of them are in office, they can liberate the gagged scientists who know how to stop the supervolcanoes and other catastrophic events. But wait, there's more. Now, you might think that saving all life on Earth is enough. But no, TCS will go much, much further than that. Here are only some of the wonders we can expect once this group, which makes no bones about bringing in a one-world government, gains control. They are based on their 8 Pillars plan. Indeed, the symbol of TCS is the figure 8 within a circle. Rest assured, I am not making any of this up. All citizens will have a guaranteed income of $10,000 a month. All 8 billion of us. A 4-day working week. No taxes. Utilities will be free. Every house will have a free energy generator. Every house will have a matter replicator. Yes, just like Star Trek. Free healthcare for all. A cure for cancer. Every house will have a rejuvenation pod to stop aging. An end to all wars. Everyone will be equal. It never ceases to amaze me how otherwise responsible grown-up people can be seduced by truly ridiculous claims and promises. Yet, there they are on the video, a panel of them with undoubtedly thousands of followers worldwide. Although they claim their followers number in the millions. They even have one of their number, Robbie Wells, a former college football coach, running for President of the United States in 2024. It turns out he also ran in 2012, 2016, and 2020. Getting to the real motivation behind TCS is not straightforward. However, it has been labelled pro-Russian and pro-Putin in certain quarters. We can also speculate about the alluring nature of power that ends up in the lap of leaders of such groups, and the need for people to belong. An age-old story. If you have 12 hours to spare, I recommend that you take a nice long walk, wash the car, read a book, listen to an Australian skeptical podcast, do anything other than sit through the mind-numbing video from TCS. But if you must, if you enjoy a good laugh, then simply look up, quote, The Creative Society, end quote, on YouTube. When 2036 comes and goes, and the Earth still spins, complete with its atmosphere, we can only wonder what TCS will tell what's left of their followers. But this is an oft-repeated saga, century after century. The end times are always coming and never arrive. I wrote about this phenomenon in The Skeptic, Volume 41, Number 3, in 2021, in an article entitled Any Day Now. I promise. Mind you, I am looking forward to my Star Trek matter replicator. And that was The Upside of Doomsday. Richard Saunders looks at a body that creates fear, but promises salvation in Star Trek. And you can find that in the pages of The Skeptic, the magazine from Australian Skeptics. Most back issues are available for you for free. Just visit skeptics.com.au.
Hello, Skeptic Zone listeners. This is Susan Gerbic from the GSOW Wikipedia Project. I also explore the world of psychic mediums, grief vampires, and expose their tricks and methods to exploit people. If you'd like to join me on this journey, please subscribe to my channel on YouTube, Psychics Explained. Or if you need help remembering that name, it's also Psychic Sex Planed. I think I'll get a lot more viewers that way. But please join the conversation and subscribe.
Hi everyone, I'm Fraser Cain, I'm the publisher of Universe Today, and I have gathered together two of my favorite members of the skeptic community. Brian Dunning, Richard Saunders, they're right here.
Hi.
And I have been thinking a lot about the role skepticism plays, scientific knowledge, scientific literacy. How can we navigate and help other people navigate this world today? And so I wanted to just ask them a bunch of questions, free-form thoughts about this. How do you feel when you realize that you were wrong and you change your mind? How does that feel for you guys?
When did that ever happen?
So, I mean, the topics that I do,
I don't mean like in terms of like someone presents evidence for Bigfoot. I mean, you thought you left your keys in the car, but it turns out they were in your jacket.
Oh, that happens all the time. My goodness me. For me, arguments with people because I thought this happened and then I find out I'm wrong.
Yeah.
Well, it sucks. But
really?
Yeah. Well, I mean, no one likes to
I love it.
Well,
I really, so I like, maybe I'm wired a little weird, but I really like when someone makes an argument to me that I find convincing and compelling, right. I get so excited.
Yeah.
And
okay. This is a different point of view. Yeah.
When I find out that reality, and it's this weird feeling, this weird thing I try to describe to people, and I haven't found the right analogy, but when I think I've eaten the last piece of cake, and I'm like, it's no more cake. And then I go to the fridge and I open it up and I'm like, whoa, behind the the stupid cabbage, there's a piece of cake.
Yeah.
I get to eat a piece of cake. That feels good. Suddenly reality, revealed to you the truth about the other cake.
It's all right.
Revealed to you. And like different versions. It is like this tickle in my brain that I really thrive on is like finding out that I'm wrong. And I find it really fun.
Right. All right.
Yeah.
I hear you. I still get annoyed, but the older I get and the more that happens to me, the more at least I realize, because we know memory is fallible, which a lot of people can't quite comprehend. So a lot of people say, I know what I remember. It can't be any other way. And I know memory is fallible. It's still a bit jarring when it happens, that's all.
And, and I think, face of the internet, we can end the pointless argument. So like I'll say some bogus fact and my wife will say, no, it's this. And I'll be like, no, really? And then I'll look it up. And that moment where I look it up and I find out the right answer, for me, it's delight. My response is delight.
Right? I guess we're talking about a slightly different things. I agree with you.
Right.
It is delightful.
Yeah. Because you now have a more realistic model of the universe in your mind. That you now, what was a piece of errant thinking has been replaced with a piece that better matches reality. But I don't think my experience is common. I don't think it's normal. I think people
You're right.
find that unpleasant.
I was just about to say, what we hear a lot of the times is people will say to me, you skeptics, you were wrong about this, and this. And I'll say, you were wrong about the earth being flat. What? The best one, I was doing a TV show and somebody said, you skeptics, you were wrong about acupuncture. And I said, no, we weren't.
I'm still not.
And it's still not.
Yeah.
A lot of people are of the opinion that skeptics get things wrong all the time. It's really interesting.
Well, I think one of the most important things to be aware of for everyone is that we all believe things that are wrong.
You want to weed them out.
I want to weed them out. I don't know what they are, or I would have already weeded them out. Right. But it does happen. And like you say, it's delightful when it does happen. And sometimes it's pretty challenging. It's like, no way, I knew that was true. Come on.
Especially when you remember something. Clearly you remember something and it turns out that's not what happened.
But the thing that is present is the evidence. The cake behind the cabbage. Right. That's what makes that transition for me. When you make that discovery of when reality sort of forces its way into your brain again, it's because there's overwhelming evidence. And so I think the trick is it's our ability to distinguish evidence that I think sets those kinds of that sort of philosophy or sort of psychology apart. Like I think for some people, they have a hard time, I don't know, like getting the evidence that they need, to get evidence that is sufficient for them.
If they ever go that far in their thinking, a lot of people we deal with simply think at a more fundamental level. I don't know how else to put it.
Well, but I think we all understand when reality, when you fall and you're like, I didn't think there was a step here, and you take a step and you realize that there's actually one more step than you thought. And then
jarring.
That's jarring. And nature and reality updates you with how many steps you had in front of your house, and nobody is going to question that evidence. And so how do we find evidence, or how do we help people understand when the evidence is sufficient?
I think Brian's attitude is a good attitude, because I've had years and decades of not getting through to people with clear, calm arguments where they get more and more frustrated and angry, and it just gets counterproductive.
You can't go after someone's sacred cow. No matter how wrong their sacred cow is, it's important to them. And you've got to deal with this on a human level. And when something is important to someone, respect that. And if you need to help them get to a different place in their thinking, don't go that way. Find another way that still respects their sacred cow. Let them come to be the ones that question that, rather than having it attacked from outside.
Because we get back to this point of we all put up our barriers to protect ourselves. We protect our egos. It's very natural. Case in point is many years ago, I was on a TV show where I tested these so-called wristbands, the power balance bands. It was a craze. And I tested the Australian distributor of these power balance right on television. Now, I was of the opinion that he really believed these were wonderful things, and he was helping to spread the word and making money and is having a great time. And when he failed all the tests, it's like the water diviners, when they failed all the tests, their brains kick in to protect their belief. So he ultimately came away with the conclusion that they were fake TV tests. That's why he failed. The water divine will say, well, my rods weren't working because the cow was over there and bred. Of course, it doesn't work.
Or your cameras have magnetic fields or whatever. Yeah.
It doesn't matter.
Yeah.
They have to. The brain will find a way to protect the belief.
Yeah, my dragon can't be seen in infrared.
We get back to this again. Yeah. It's the dragon in the garage.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Next week, in part 4 of this series, Fraser, Richard and Brian discuss the modern skeptical movement, is it seen as a bad thing, and dealing with artificial intelligence.
Hello, this is Maynard. Did you know that you could listen to the Skeptic Zone on YouTube? Yes, I know, sounds crazy, but it's true. Also, you can hear 40 logical fallacies with Michelle Bickersma and funny sketches with Richard Saunders and a host of other skeptics. Just click on the YouTube links on the homepage at skepticzone.tv.
I think we need to think. Here's Susan Gerbic.
Hi everyone, it's Susan Gerbic, and I am here with Melanie Trecek-King. And we are in Brisbane right now getting ready to do a talk. What we are doing is we have a brief moment to talk about the New Zealand Skeptics conference that we just attended in Dunedin. And what we're going to be doing is heading over to a couple other areas, which is the Melbourne Skeptic Conference, and then followed by Sydney Skeptics in the pub. So I have cornered Melanie. We have a moment in time that we're both not doing something very important. And I want to ask her about the conference and what she thought. I mean, we really haven't had a chance to talk, even though we are flying together and we're traveling together. So Melanie, tell me what you thought.
Oh, so the New Zealand Skeptic Conference was absolutely wonderful.
Right.
First of all, it was in my happy place, New Zealand. And the people there were absolutely spectacular. The organizers, Craig and Mark and Bronwyn and Hamish, and am I forgetting anyone?
Probably.
Oh, probably. If I left you out, I am so sorry because all of you just made me feel welcome and were supportive, and you even gave my husband the birthday that I didn't give him, so thank you. And the speakers, they had some just really excellent speakers. Susan.
Oh, well, of course, but we can't talk about mine.
Susan not only started the conference, but she filled in for another speaker who wasn't able to talk.
That was fun.
And did this awesome workshop on the fly. And I'm going to steal it from her and use it in my classes.
You're welcome to it.
Zafir gave a great talk. I learned about cults in New Zealand, from Anka, who has a book that I look forward to reading. And there was a speaker, what was her name?
It was the Hare Krishna, this one right here, Kelly.
Yeah, Kelly Van Garwin gave a really moving talk.
Came out of the Hare Krishnas.
Yeah.
Amazing.
I had no idea. Mm-hmm. So some of the talks were quite academic. There was a great data scientist, David Hood, who talked about the COVID numbers in New Zealand. And there were other talks that were really vulnerable and brave, and came from a place of really emotional place, I suppose. They had an acupuncturist come and talk.
That was interesting. An acupuncturist, yes.
I mean, so it said guest mystery speaker, and I didn't know what to expect, but apparently they do this, where they bring in somebody who, that is an incredibly brave thing to do for the mystery speaker, because it's like going into the lion's den. Right. I was not convinced. Were you?
No, that was it. What I enjoyed most about the acupuncturist was how the skeptics asked questions politely, informatively, and in a way that was along the lines of kind of what would it take to change your mind kind of thing. They didn't attack exactly every little detail or anything like that. They were more broad and they were kind. I thought it was great.
Yeah. The talk that I gave was on why facts don't change our minds. And
that was terrific, you guys.
Oh, thank you. There were so many great questions afterwards. And, as skeptics, we try and protect people from woo. I don't know if that's saying it right, but we try to, point out the kinds of things that aren't evidence-based so that they can be empowered to make better decisions. And it can be really frustrating to see people not changing their mind. And so the kinds of questions that that they asked after the presentation were very insightful, and obviously from a place of they had been there and trying to deal with the same things themselves.
Absolutely agree. You know what? I think if there was a theme, and they say there isn't a theme, I would think it would be kind of cults, because Lindley Hood also talked about the Christchurch. Well, it wasn't a cult, but it was talking about the satanic panic in New Zealand, and that just kind of felt like it was cult related because people were thinking it was a cult going on in Christchurch years ago, and they imprisoned this young man for claims made by people. It was quite horrible.
As somebody who, I lived through the satanic panic as a kid, and I teach about it in class because you can trace a thread from the witch trials to the satanic panic to the, QAnon, and to hear what has been going on in New Zealand, or what went on during that time in New Zealand, was really interesting. And actually, New Zealand is culturally similar to the United States, but yet different. And so it was really fascinating to hear the kinds of issues that New Zealand skeptics have been dealing with.
Yeah, the organizers, the people who attended, the venue, just about everything. I mean, the social aspects, which I live for, it was just all important. And in conferences, in my view, is you got to get to a talk. If you can't get to a talk or a conference, do whatever you can to get to a Skeptics in the Pub. The just meeting people in person and making friends, networking, taking photos, breaking bread, sharing a drink with someone, it's so important. And you come out of it feeling energized and passionate about the project and optimistic, I think. I felt optimistic. A little tired, actually very tired.
No rest for the weary, Susan.
We got to keep going. So, all right. Thank you guys, everyone. I really appreciate you, Skeptic Zone listeners, and we will talk to you again with the next update on the next part of this whirlwind tour of New Zealand and Australia.
Thank you for listening to the Skeptic Zone podcast this week. I've come back into the studio where it's a little bit shielded from the hordes, the flocks, the multitude of rainbow lorikeets. If you want to find out more about rainbow lorikeets and the noise they make, well, you know about the noise. If you want to see what they look like, they're quite beautiful. They're very colourful. And they don't call them rainbow lorikeets for nothing. Well, just Google rainbow lorikeet. Congratulations to the award winners at the Australian Skeptics Convention. Do I say congratulations to Ross Coulthart? I don't know. Another UFO flash in the pan? Well, we'll wait 5 years and find out. Hang on, we've been waiting for 70 years already. Thank you to my wonderful Patreon supporters, Patreon and PayPal at SkepticZone.tv. Your contributions keep the show going. And the rainbow lorikeets and the sea lions approve. Coming up on next week's show, interviews with Melanie Trecek-King and Susan Gerbic, probably at Skeptics in the Pub. Probably. And hopefully Maynard will be there as well. In fact, last night Maynard had his regular Christmas special. And normally I'm the part of the crew putting that Christmas special together, but this year I couldn't make it. But Maynard, you did pretty well on your own as sound and camera and editing and acting and everything else. You can find out more at maynard.com.au, and pretty soon you'll be able to download the Maynard calendar for 2024. That's being worked on at the moment. A shout out to my friend Brian Dunning over at the Skeptoid podcast at Skeptoid Media. I've been working on a semi-secret project for Brian recently. It's to do with the Skeptoid owl. Hoot hoot, the owl. More news when we're able to tell you more about that. But for this week, from Sydney, Australia, this is Richard Saunders signing off.
You've been listening to the Skeptic Zone podcast. Please visit our website at www.skepticzone.tv for episodes and show notes with links going back to 2008. You can follow the Skeptic Zone on Facebook, X, TikTok and YouTube by clicking the links at our homepage, together with links to support the show financially via Patreon or PayPal. The Skeptic Zone is an independent production. The views and opinions expressed by our guests are not necessarily those of the Skeptic Zone podcast or any other skeptical organisation.
Hello to those people who listen after the music for the dice game. Yes, back in the studio, I'm going to play this time. Or for those of you who don't know, every now and then we roll a die. 10-sided normally, sometimes 6. Today, I've got a D20, 20-sided. We're going to roll it 3 times, and let's see if you can predict using dumb luck or magic powers. Normally, I don't play along. Sometimes I do, but I should, so I'm going to play along today. I'm going to roll it 3 times, possibly 4. Let me write down my choice before I roll it, and you'll just have to trust me. 11. Here we go. Here it comes. 13. Close. I'm going to predict now. Predict 8. Here it comes. 15. All right. My psychic powers aren't very good today. I'm going to predict 19. Here it comes. 2. Maybe I should be more modest in my expectations. I'm going to roll a D10 for the last one. The supplementary, the extra. So I've got a 10-sided die here. I'm going to predict 5. Here we come. Here it is. 7. Oh well. Today's winning numbers. 13. 15, 2, and 7.